welcome to another episode of Top Cheese and Hail Marys podcast. I'm your host, Christian Hartzell, and as always, Carter Slingerland with me. How are we doing?
We're doing great. NFL draft done. NBA and NHL playoffs are just in the swing. Baseball season started. We're in the full swing of Big Four sports. So let's get started because we got a lot to talk about today.
All right, so today we're going to talk about kind of an NHL preview and so far review of the first round. And just before we get into that, I want to note that right now, when we're recording at 4:19 Eastern Time, some of the games are going on, and some are tonight. So when this comes out, the series might be different. So starting it right off, we will also be talking about the NFL draft. So here we go. First series that we have is the Panthers. They're leading the series 3-0 against the Lightning. What do you feel about this interesting series in Florida?
I think the Panthers have just absolutely dominated the series. The Lightning just can't keep up with the goal scoring that the Panthers are putting up. The Panthers have been dominant all season on offense, and they're showing that why they're one of the best teams in the league in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of have this moment, kind of this year and not a few years ago. It's kind of the end of the Tampa Bay 2-year reign. They had their little moment, and now it's over. Next up, we have the Canes leading 3-0 to the Islanders. So, Canes, my team to win it all. My team since day one in October, with Jake Gensel. Brett Burns, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Sebastian Aho, Dmitry Orlov, and Seth Jarvis. I mean, the team is magnificent, but I feel like they might need better goaltending because Frederik Andersen has a save percentage of 0.920, I should say. What do you feel about that Canes matchup? And do you think the Islanders even have a chance here?
I mean, it was a big thing that the Islanders got the win yesterday in Game 4 in double OT, and the Hurricanes they've looked really good this series, but they're gonna have a tough second round matchup against probably the Rangers, but anything can happen. So we'll see what happens because really the Islanders could come back and beat the Hurricanes. Capitals could come back and beat the Rangers, but it probably won't happen. So I think the Hurricanes are going to have a tough matchup if they play the Rangers, but right now they're looking excellent.
Yeah, my apologies. I said 3-0. I meant 3-1 here. And like you said, New York Rangers leading the Caps here. Igor Shesterkin is really locked in with a goals against average of 1.67. I mean, he's looking like Igor Shesterkin was, I guess, in the regular season. And I mean, he's really doing good. He seems calm, but of course, you're playing the Capitals, so it's not really a crazy challenge. What do you feel about those New York Rangers?
I mean, Capitals definitely have the playoff experience as they won the Stanley Cup in 2018 and have just been a very consistent team. But it's hard when you have your main guys, Alex Ovechkin, TJ Oshie, and that crew from the 2018 Stanley Cup squad getting old, like late 30s. And I think the Capitals, this is probably the final season of the playoffs for a while. I think they're going to enter a rebuilding phase for at least a half decade. It was a good run for the Capitals, but I think it's over.
Yeah, sadly, it's another team that's kind of with the Penguins is kind of just, players getting older, getting traded away. Eventually, can't always win, just like the Warriors. But headed right into the Boston Bruins, who are actually leading 3-1 unexpectedly to Toronto. But I still think Toronto can win. I mean, we saw last year the Panthers, they came back from a 3-1 series against the Bruins, and that was against the insane most amount of wins in a season Boston Bruins. What do you feel about this matchup between Boston and Toronto?
The Bruins came to this playoffs with a vengeance. After that loss last year, they were like, no, that's not happening again. They've dominated the series against the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are in a lot of trouble because Austin Matthews left the game early last night with an illness and probably is questionable for Game 5, but is on the side of not playing. I think if the Bruins can keep playing the way they have been playing, I think they could make a nice run here.
Yeah, definitely something to watch out for. And it's kind of one of those series where either teams could really make a big run into this offseason. Next up, Vegas Stars are, I'm sorry, Vegas Golden Knights are leading the Stars. But I think the Stars can come back here with strong goaltending because right now Jake Ottinger has a 0.892 save percentage, which is abysmal, and a 2.5 goals against average. I mean, just not great numbers. What do you feel about this series?
I mean, we know the Knights are can be very powerful on offense, but that was a big win last night in overtime. The Stars won at 2 a.m. Eastern time with an overtime goal. And I think that could just really give the Stars some momentum as they guarantee themselves at least one more game in front of their home crowd. I think that the Stars, I think they definitely show potential of making a comeback here after being down 2-0. I think if they can just play the way they played in the regular season, then I think they could do some damage.
Yeah, definitely a matchup to look out for, and definitely something Vegas Golden Knights. I'd still consider them a newer team. Um, they found their ground early, obviously very early, and they've got a chance here. Every team really has a chance. Next up, Jets Avalanche, and this is one of the games going on right now. Let me just I don't uh, I'll Carter if you can check that score.
Right
But I
now,
think
4-1 Avalanche at the end of the second period.
yeah, so 4-1 Avalanche. That's what you expect from the Avalanche. What a great team! Nathan McKinnon might be the MVP of the year. So definitely, I think the Avalanche have it over the Jets for sure.
Yeah.
It's still something you can watch. What about you?
I
What do you
mean,
feel
when you
about this?
have Nathan McKinnon, Michael Rantanen on the same team, it's going to be hard to lose against a team like the Jets. Just the Avalanche's offense is so powerful. It's hard. It's really hard to stop. As you said, Nathan McKinnon, most likely the MVP of the league, just so dynamic. He's a great goal scorer, even better passer, I would say. And Michael Rantanen is just an excellent goal scorer, knows how to get the puck in the net. And I think the Avalanche, they're probably one of the top Stanley Cup contenders right now.
Yeah, definitely a team to look out for, and something to look forward to really in the West. So next up we have the Canucks leading the Predators 2-1. Um, the Predators have really been the underdogs, but I think rightfully so. I mean they're not there's nothing crazy about that team. Just a good team, but still kind of underdogs. What do you feel about them against the crazy Canucks?
The Canucks have just, even though it doesn't really say 2-1, they've played well. Obviously the Predators they're not any scrubs. They're a good hockey team, and I think they could get the win tonight. Game 4, they're in front of their home crowd. They have the playoff experience. The Canucks are still a very young team, so I think they might win a title in the next few years or so. I think the Predators will get the win tonight in front of their home crowd with that home ice insurance, with the home ice advantage and the playoff experience to their advantage.
Yeah, should be something to look out for. Next up, we got the Oilers and Kings. The Oilers leading 2-1 against the Kings. But the Oilers haven't been a great playoff team, but I think this might be the series they'll win. Finally, maybe a little streak starter here against a pretty decent Kings team, honestly. What do you feel about this matchup?
I mean, we know for a long time that the Oilers are disappointing in the playoffs always, but this year could be different. Right now, they have the series lead. If they can beat the Kings tomorrow night at 10:30, then I think they're in a good shape to make it past the first round.
Yeah, should be interesting. And I hope the Oilers have a good run here. Not a lot of Canadian teams making this playoff. But I think that's definitely one of the teams to look out for. And wrapping this NHL up, what is your Stanley Cup playoffs final matchup and series ending?
So I personally have my Stanley Cup final: the New York Rangers and the Colorado Avalanche. Just arguably the two best teams in hockey right now. New York Rangers gonna sweep the Capitals tonight, and the Avalanche looking as dominant as they are against the Jets. I think the Rangers are gonna win 6 games.
All right. So for me, I think the Canes are beating the Canucks 4-2 series. I feel like Canucks. I like them. They're a good team. Peterson has always been amazing. So is Quinn Hughes. They've both been amazing players, good goal scorers, and that's definitely personally what I think is gonna have to go down here. So now we're going into the NHL. I'm sorry, the NFL, and so we're just gonna go over the top 16 picks, 16 being half of the league, and we're just gonna Carter. I'm gonna say the name, say where they're from, say who they went, what team they went to, position, and then I'm gonna ask you if you're just, well, I should have said this better. You're gonna say if you think they're gonna be a bust. Here we go. I'll also say Caleb Williams, USC. He goes to the Bears. He's a QB.
I think he's gonna be a bust. I feel like he was just inconsistent in college. Obviously, his stats don't really say it the same. But if you actually watch the tape, he had 3 interceptions against Notre Dame, which is as close to an NFL defense as I think as close to an NFL defense that I think you could get in college. Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, defensive minded coach, excellent defense. Multiple players drafted in the NFL draft this past weekend. I think Caleb Williams is. I mean, the obvious answer. It was the obvious draft pick, and the obvious answer is like, oh, he's gonna be so good. I don't know. I feel like he's gonna be a bust, but I mean, anything can happen.
Personally, I'm with you too. I feel like they've really, they've really hyped him a little bit too much. He is an amazing player. I mean, like you said, definitely should have been the first pick of the draft, rightfully so. But I think, he's going to be another Justin Fields kind of guy. Just not what you want. Next up, Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels, LSU QB.
And also, I just want to say one more thing about Caleb Williams. In the history of the Bears, they're not good at developing quarterbacks, like you saw with Justin Fields and a bunch of other guys. They're just not. They just have an awful history of drafting quarterbacks. But moving on to Jaden Daniels, I think he definitely needs to add some muscle. He looked excellent in college in his final season at LSU, winning the Heisman Trophy. He was definitely the best player in college football. And I think if he just needs to add on a little muscle, and I think he'll be an excellent QB. I think I could see him being the next Lamar or RG3. Hopefully, just the injury bug just doesn't get to him.
Yeah, I think he was like he was most definitely going to be the Commanders pick. Great player, and I think it's really going to help the Commanders, which is already a team I'm really kind of rooting for here. So it'll be interesting. like you said, I agree. I don't think this is going to be a bust. I think he'll be a good player. Definitely needs to hit the weight room. But I think, yeah, we'll see. Like all of these players, you know, we're not perfect, so we can't tell you exactly. But what we think, yeah, that he's going to be good. Next
And
up, Drake.
also, and also, new Commanders OC Cliff Kingsbury. His offense is definitely designed for a mobile QB like Jaden Daniels. So I think that will also help them.
Yeah, next up is Drake Mays. He goes to the Patriots from North Carolina. He's also a quarterback. What do you feel about him? Is he a bust?
I personally love this pick for the Patriots. I think he's the perfect guy for this Patriots team. I mean, going back to his time at North Carolina, he really did not have much help. Maybe his only NFL tier receiver being Tez Walker, who was drafted in the late rounds. I mean, if you put him on that Michigan team that just won the title this past year, I think they're in the conversation for greatest college football team of all time. But unfortunately, that North Carolina team just did not have the weapons to surround Drake May, and that O line was definitely average at best. They let Drake May get hit a lot. Um, I think Drake May, if they can just build their offense around him now, I think he'll be excellent in in the pros.
Yeah, definitely someone to look out for, and definitely someone that the Patriots need. Some QB after losing Tom Brady. That was long ago actually, but I think they just weren't able to work it out with with the QB position, and so they're looking for Drake May to solve it. Next up, Marvin Harrison from Ohio State going to the Cardinals. He's a wide receiver. What do you feel about this fourth pick of the draft?
It I love it for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, he's needed a receiver since the DeAndre Hopkins departed, and this is the perfect guy. I think he could be the next DeAndre Hopkins. Insane athleticism, his ability to go get balls is just insane, and just his ability to get away from his defenders just outstanding. I think that would definitely translate to the pros, especially with a father like Marvin Harrison, former Super Bowl winner and Hall of Famer.
Yeah, definitely a wide receiver to look out for. Definitely the best in the draft. Next up, we have Joe Alt, Notre Dame Charger. He goes to the Chargers. He's an offensive tackle. What do you feel about Joe?
Finally, Justin Herbert gets some protection. They drafted Rashawn Slater, who I thought was going to be great, but the injury bug has diseased him. I think Joe Alt, he's big, he's fast for a guy his size. I think defenders are going to have a hard time getting past them. I think this draft pick is what could transform Justin Herbert to the MVP caliber QB that we all expect him to be.
Yeah, and definitely something that the Chargers need for sure. He's been Justin Herbert has been sacked so many times, and with losing so many components to that offense, I think that Joe Alt might have been the right idea. Next up was Malik Neighbors from LSU going to the Giants, wide receiver. What do you feel about him?
I think this is the safest pick in the draft. I think Malik Neighbors is just outstanding with all aspects of being a receiver, caliber to the best ones in the league today. He's so explosive off the line of scrimmage. He's fast. He's big, so he can go up and get those balls against one on one in the end zone. I think Daniel Jones has definitely needed some help for years now, and Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton aren't going to cut as your top two guys. And they definitely need to still work on the offensive line. I know they tried to address it, but I don't think it's enough. I think they just need to go out and get a couple of linemen that can hold Daniel Jones' body up for a couple of years, and then maybe just try and draft some O linemen so Daniel Jones doesn't get folded every year.
Yeah, overall, I think this was a good pickup. Next up, we have J.C. Latham. He came from Bama. He goes to the Titans. He's an offensive tackle. Very, very interesting pick for the Titans, but I think it's also necessary. What do you feel about him?
I think he was picked a little too high, but I think their guy was going to be Joe Alt, but he was taken by the Chargers. So picking up J.C. Latham, the next best offensive lineman in the draft, I think he'll be good. He just needs he just obviously just needs some development. I think he could be a very good and consistent offensive lineman for this Titans team.
Yeah, for sure. Another offensive lineman that's looking very prosperous. Next up, we got Michael Penix Jr. at 8, and he's from Washington going to the Falcons. He's a QB. This has been a controversial pick. I mean, I say that as if not everybody had him at 8, but it has been criticized because it's Michael Penix Jr. A lot of question around him. You know, I feel that JJ McCarthy probably was the better pick here. But what do you feel about Michael Penix Jr.?
I personally think that they definitely had bigger needs than quarterback, especially after signing Kirk Cousins to a nine-figure deal. Michael Penix, he was great last season, but the Falcons just don't have the weapons that Washington did. Sure, they have Kyle Pitts and London, excuse me, but they spend more time on the injured list than on the field. Like thing when you look at that Washington team, you have Roma Dunzai, who we're going to talk about next, Jalen Polk, who's picked in second on day 2, Jalen McMillan, who is also an excellent receiver, and they had a great O line. When you go back, I think Mike. By the time Kirk Cousins' contract ends, I don't think he's going to play all 4 years. He's going to be like if Kirk Cousins plays for all 4 years on that contract, Michael Penix is going to be 28 when that contract ends. I mean, maybe he could be Kurt Warner, but and also if you just look at his injury history, he had 4 season-ending injuries at Indiana, including two ACL tears, both in the right knee. So I think the Falcons they definitely they should have avoided Michael Penix just considering his injury history. But I don't know what the Falcons GM was doing. I think they definitely could have improved their team, and I just don't think this was a good pick, especially this high.
Yeah, it really feels like a wasted pick. Next up, like you mentioned, Romo Doozy from Washington going to the Bears. So I think this might have been the best pick of the draft. I feel like Rome is probably going to be a great pick. He's a great player. I mean, I'm just excited to see him play. I know the team might not be great, but I'm really excited for him. What do you feel about Roma Doozy?
I think this is a great pick, especially getting him at number 9, and I think it's who the Falcons should have taken. He's an excellent receiver. I think you could compare him to guys like Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors. He his hands are just so good in that he's not really going to drop balls that he should catch. I think the Bears, Roma Dunze falling to the Bears' lap at 9 is a blessing. I think the Bears should be really happy that they got it. They got him, and I think this Bears team could be scary this season.
Yeah, definitely a team to watch out for. Next up, like I said, JJ McCarthy from Michigan going to the Vikings at 10. I think this was probably a better pick than Roma Doozy. Honestly, this was, I feel personally that this was even better than you know, the Falcons not drafting him, and this really, really helps the Vikings because they are QB-less, which is not looking great. Scary, scary future for them, and then they get JJ McCarthy. What do you feel about JJ McCarthy?
Excellent pick by the Vikings. We all thought that the Vikings were going to trade up and get JJ McCarthy because we thought he was going to be in top 5. When the Vikings saw him and he was still on the clock at number 10, and the Jets probably do need a quarterback for the future, and J.J. McCarthy is perfect because he's still pretty young. The Vikings are like, no, we got to trade up. They trade one pick, which is enough to grab J.J. McCarthy, who I think could be excellent. I mean, Michigan, they had to run a heavy offense at his time there, but I think he's a good enough passer where he'll translate to be a great QB in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely someone to look out for, and definitely someone that can throw to Justin Jefferson. So next up, we got 11. Don't quote me on this. Alu Fashanu, I believe is how you pronounce that. From Penn State, going to the Jets, offensive tackle. What do you feel about him?
Brock Bowers was right there. They pick an O lineman. Aaron Rodgers definitely broke something, whether one of his bones, a vase, something like that, etc. But overall, this isn't bad for the Jets because you saw how Aaron Rodgers got hurt. The Jets' O line was so bad that they just let Leonard Floyd go in there and snap his Achilles on the fourth play. I mean, signing Tyron Smith and trading for Morgan Moses can only help for 1 year. Getting a guy like Fanchanu, I think it's going to be big for the Jets, especially for the future. As their future at the quarterback position is still questionable because Zach Wilson's gone. It's basically just Aaron Rodgers on the QB depth chart right now for the Jets. So we'll have to see who they're going to get for their quarterback to be next year. Because I don't think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, definitely something to watch here as the postseason progresses. Are they going to try and keep Aaron Rodgers running at the QB1? Next up, Bo Nix from Oregon heading down to Denver. He's a QB. Honestly, decent pick, but I feel like it's a little odd. I feel like they definitely needed a QB, but it seems forced. What do you feel about this pick?
Yeah, I thought I was forced too. Um, I mean, Bo Nix, he was very good in college. Also, another guy who's pretty old. He will probably be the starting quarterback for the Broncos in this next season. I mean, after getting rid of Russell Wilson, which did not work out, obviously, there's definitely some pressure. There's definitely some pressure on Bo Nix to be better than Russell Wilson, and Bo Nix is already 24 years old, so that's already 2-3 years. Some guys are already 2-3 years in to their time in the NFL at 24 years old, and Bo Nix hasn't even played a snap. I mean, I guess Bo Nix definitely has potential to be good, but I think he was definitely taken too high.
Yeah, I agreed. Broncos country. Let's hope that Bo Nix is not a bust. All right, here next up, Brock Bauer from Georgia, going to the Raiders. Good tight end, great player, but he's a little bit smaller than what we're used to, so he might have a little bit of a problem if he does have to block. So just the one concern, he's a good player. Just the one concern that he might not be as big as your modern tight end. What do you feel about Brock Bauer?
I think the Raiders could get away with moving Brock Bowers to wide receiver and still be as good as he was in college. Because the Raiders already have Michael Mayer, who has a lot of potential to be at the level of the best tight ends in the league right now, like George Kittle and Travis Kelce. I think the Raiders definitely had bigger needs, but you can't really pass up on Brock Bowers at 13, so I think it was the right choice. And I can't wait to see what they do with him. I feel like he definitely has potential to be great, but we'll see how the Raiders manage Brock Bowers.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. Next up is don't again. This is a odd name here. Taliz Funga. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Oregon State offensive tackle going to the Saints. It feels like one of those really you don't need offensive tackle players. You don't. I mean, like sure you can. It's definitely going to help, but I mean, you have so many better options. What do you feel about this pick?
I'm a fan of this pick. I think he's got good potential to be a good offensive lineman. I think he just definitely gotta. We just gotta see because the Saints, Fuaga. I think he could be great, but you just gotta see how he gets developed. Because the Saints are known for developing players pretty well, but I guess we just have to see because any selection here is you never know what's gonna happen. There aren't really any safe picks in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, 15, Latu, from UCLA. He goes to Colts. He's an edge rusher. Definitely someone to look out for. Great edge rusher in college. Of course, UCLA not being the greatest football college this year, but definitely someone to look out for. What do you feel about him?
I think he definitely deserves to be the first defensive player taken out off the board. He was at he was forced to medically retire at Washington, but then took 2 years off and then came back at UCLA and just was dominant. I think this is a good pick for the Colts. I think they could really use a guy like him on the edge, just blitzing in on not mobile quarterbacks. He definitely has the speed to keep up with guys like Josh Allen. Probably not maybe Lamar Jackson. I think he could be. I think he definitely could be really good, but I think his main concern is just his injury history, as you said. He shouldn't be driving going to Indianapolis right now. He should be retired, but he had enough courage to go out there again and play for UCLA for 2 years, and he was excellent. He was excellent.
He was, and this should be interesting. Last we have Byron Murphy from Texas going to the Seahawks. He's a defensive tackle. What do you feel about him, Seahawks fan?
Excellent pick. I love it. Obviously, need a defensive tackle first draft, and I think Byron Murphy's the perfect one. He's just a little undersized for height, but he's definitely got the weight, and he dominated during the season. Main reason why one of the main reasons why Texas was in the college football playoff. And also for Seahawks, really like their third round pick, Christian Haynes. I think they definitely had some questions at the offensive guard spot. And I think they definitely answered them for now with Christian Haynes.
All right, so that'll wrap it up for the actual draft. We have some questions here. Now, the 28th pick of the draft was Xavier Worthy. Do you think someone should have picked him up? Xavier Worthy being the wide receiver. Do you think he should have been picked up before Kansas City picked him up?
I definitely pictured him to be second round pick. I think he is undersized. But we've seen small guys succeed in the league before who is like Tyreek Hill, who I think Xavier Worthy, if he's absolutely a monster, could be Tyreek Hill 2.0. He's small, but he's so fastest player in draft combined history, 4.2140. It's definitely something. I think it's the main reason why he got drafted. Also, the Chiefs did need a wide receiver, but I would have rather taken Keon Coleman. But overall, I think Chiefs not a bad pick. He's definitely going to be better than Kadarius Toney.
Another question here. 5 out of the 10 first picks were QBs. This is a record-setting mountain. Why do you think this is?
I think this is just a stacked QB class. I mean, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. We knew they were going to be top 3 picks for a month. But then Michael Penix, a little questionable, but then JJ McCarthy, his draft stock definitely upgraded over the past couple months, especially with winning the national championship with Michigan. I think 4 of the 10 QBs deserve to be in the top 10. But I think it's just a great QB class, and you could have guys like sleepers like Spencer Rattler and Joe Milton, they could be great too. So we'll just have to see how this quarterback class is, because there's a lot of questions around this class. I think it could be great, but it could also be really, really bad.
And the final question: who had the best draft, and who had the worst draft?
I'll start with the worst draft. I think it's the Atlanta Falcons. They just made so many questionable picks, mainly Michael Penix. But then also in the other rounds too, they were very questionable, which caught my eye. I think the Falcons, if they definitely had a good draft, I think they could be a playoff team. But they just had very questionable draft. I don't think they're gonna make it. I think the best draft goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, addressing their big needs to O-line with their first few picks, Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier. Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle at Washington, considering moving him to guard, which I don't think would be terrible. The Steelers, they just made some excellent picks. I think Mike Tomlin really knows how to draft, as we've seen him draft late gems before, like Antonio Brown before he went absolutely bonkers. But overall, I think the Steelers had the best draft out of anyone. Also, Cardinals definitely up there. Marvin Harrison is headliner of this class, obviously. But Steelers and Cardinals are definitely top two draft class for me, and the Falcons with the worst.
For me, I think the best has to be Chicago. Less for Caleb Williams and more for Rome Oduzzi. I think that's a two decent picks. I don't know about Caleb, but definitely I know Rome's gonna be someone good. And then for me, worst, like I have to agree with you. I think the Falcons were just a little discombobulated. Just not good. So that'll wrap it up. So next up we have our foundation of the week. This foundation is the Boston Bruins Foundation. They're a nonprofit foundation that collaborates with other charitable organizations that demonstrate a commitment to health and wellness, as well as education and athletics. So we'll have a link to go donate. Now, Carter, do you have the trivia?
Yes, I do. So we all know Bo Jackson, the legend he is in baseball and in football, with mainly with the Raiders and Royals. But who controversially picked him in the 1986 NFL Draft? Hartzell, why don't you tell them where they can submit their answers?
So you can go submit that in the Tapa Talk link in the show notes. So if you click on that, no, it costs you nothing, and if you get it, if you're the first person to get it correct, then you'll get a shout out in the next episode. So I hope you guys go do that. Thank you so much for listening in. This has been Top Cheese and Hail Mary's podcast. Thank you, Carter, for joining us.
No problem.